everybody, and welcome to the 22nd episode of the Oreninc podcast series with Mickey Fulp, the Mercenary Geologist. Mickey, thanks for joining me on this Sunday morning. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Kai, once again.
It's fantastic, and if I sound a little nasal today, I do apologize. It's allergy season, and it's got me bad today. So if you hear me go silent for a second, I've muted my microphone, sneezing and coughing. So I do apologize in advance for that. And if Mickey, if you expect me to chime in at some point, and I don't, and there's radio silence, I'm sneezing.
Okay.
So, just as a heads up. We've already prepared a couple of interesting topics again for this episode of the podcast series. As always, I'm going to start us off with a quick overview of the financing situation and the markets in general with our Oreninc Index. I'm going to try to add a new section here every time we do this now, talking about the hold periods and mention a couple of financings that are going to come off hold in the next 7 days. And Mickey and I, we've decided to go to do a year-to-date market wrap and look at a bunch of things and aspects of the markets and how well the markets have performed in general, not just looking at the mining space, but also the overall markets in general. I'm going to get us started off here with the Oreninc Index, and we've got 2 weeks to cover. The one is the Oreninc Index from April 9th, which was a measly 33.86 points on just 17 open financings. And the reason for that fairly low score is also that we haven't seen any brokered or bought deal that week. One thing that saved us was actually the Nemaska lithium financing, where SoftBank put in $99.7 million to get to 19.9%. That's a new venture fund out of Asia that decided to invest into the lithium space here. Apparently they have a couple $1 billion behind them to invest, so that's going to be an interesting one to watch. And it's the first time I heard their name, and I'm sure we're going to see their names in the battery metal space or in the new energy metal space more often. Probably without that number, or without those $100 million, the index would have been way lower, and we would have only seen roughly $20 million raised, which we've only seen like 4 or 5 times in the last 12 to 14 months. So that's a very low number. Obviously, also given the fact it was Easter week, so it's not that surprising. Last week, so April 16th, it's the index that's actually coming out tomorrow. Our number, we've seen a little increase. The number of financings have picked up to 28. We've seen 3 brokered financings for $12 million and 1 bought deal actually for $5 million. So that's not too bad. So our Oreninc Index score is 41.32 this week, which is a little healthier than the week before then, most definitely. And just the new section here is sort of the hold dates that we're going to talk about here real quick. I'm going to mention 2 financings that are going to come free trading in the next 7 days. One of them is the Silvercrest financing of $10 million. They've raised money at $1.10, if I'm not mistaken, and trading at $2.20. And the other one is Mercenary Resources. That was a $4.5 million financing at 10 cents, and the stock is pretty much flat at 10 cents right now. So I'm going to be adding those sections into the next Oreninc podcast series here with Mickey and others from the future on, because I think it presents some value. Mickey, thanks for your patience. I've been rambling a little bit here, and we've prepared some interesting topics. And what we wanted to do is discuss the overall markets, or the market developments over the year to date actually. So for the first three and a half months now, and see where things are. What have you seen, Mickey? What have you observed?
Lots of red on the board, Kai, and I do a weekly and a monthly market wrap, so I'm generally, pardon me, pretty up on this stuff, but I did not, till I compiled the numbers today, quite realize the depth of the negative or the red on the board this year. Look at the Dow, S&P, Toronto Venture Exchange, all those down on the year. The only one that is up is NASDAQ, driven, of course, by 3 or 4 big tech companies. Dow down 1.5%. S&P is not down that much, less than 1%. But the big number for us and what we do would be the Toronto Venture Exchange. It's down 6.5% since the end of 2017, and it closed Friday at 796, and that was with 4 days of positive numbers. So we would hope it hit the bottom, but it's trading at basically the level that we saw during tax loss season in December of 2017. If we go on to the metals, the three major base metals, copper, lead, and zinc, they are all down anywhere from 5.5 to over 7% on the year. Although for zinc and lead, you would have to argue those are very healthy numbers coming off an 11-year high for zinc in mid-January and a 7-year high for lead in mid-February. So those numbers, zinc at $1.40, lead at $1.05, those are still strong values, prices for those two metals. Copper's had a very volatile last month or so, very much affected by the trade tariff talk. We've seen it bounce from less than $3 to about $3.15. It closed Friday at 3.08. But copper's really been flat for the most part. I mean, it's volatile, but we haven't seen a lot of movement in the copper market over the last 3 or 4 months. It started moving up. Well, actually, we can go back probably 6 or 8 months, and it's still within this range of, say, $3 to $3.25, more or less.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the chart right now. So we're more or less since September constantly trading in between that range. Yeah.
Yeah, very range bound. So let's look at a couple of things that have performed very well, and that would be in particular oil. WTI closed at over a 3-year high on Friday at 67.39, and for your listeners across the pond there, Brent crude is also at 3+ year highs. Well over, I think it's over $71, maybe $72 now. So for WTI, that's over a 12% gain since the end of 2017. And the other one that's performed well is gold. Gold's up 3+% over the year, closed 2017 at 1302. Now closed Friday at 1345. It had a high at one point at 1358 in last week, and it's been a couple of years since we've seen that price for gold.
No, it's
very range bound once again, though, between 1300 and 1360, and it does not seem to be able to break out of that range.
No, it's stuck there. But I just read this morning somewhere that this is actually the highest range we've been in since 2016, since we've tested those levels before. So
yeah, so we keep testing this 1360, and it actually briefly went above 1360 on what was it, Thursday, I guess, and it promptly got knocked back down. So what's happening with gold when it gets into this where it looks like it's going to break out, then the shorts come in. Actually, it was Wednesday as I look at the chart. The shorts come in and knock it down again. That's precisely what it did on Wednesday morning till about midday New York time. One thing that looks quite interesting, and we know this happens commonly, is gold has been very negatively correlated with DXY, the US dollar index. So whenever the dollar index goes down, gold goes up and vice versa. And we've seen that if we look at the performance of DXY since the end of the year, down 2.8%. So gold up 3.3%, US dollar down 2.8%. And I expect that to continue. So if we want a higher gold price, we got to look at a weaker dollar.
And the tension in the Middle East there is quite interesting. Is a quite interesting factor to consider for the gold price as well, I think. And
well, yeah, and especially oil. So geopolitical risk is coming into the market again, and we've seen gold move up over the last week or so at a level is not accommodated by the drop in DXY. So that's the geopolitical risk factor.
Yeah, and the problem with that though is that it's never long lasted. So the political gold price always seems to rebound to the negative. So
Well, you can say it's never long lasting over the last 2 or 3 years, but if we go back and look at the periods of time, let's say back during the gold boom from 2003 to 2012, let's take it. Uh, Geopolitical risk could lead to very volatile and longer term trends in the gold market.
no, very true, very true. And one thing I actually wanted to mention, and as well, you mentioned the TSX Venture Index. From its high early January, we've lost 20%, just a little over
Yeah, from its high at
20%, because it
940.
really ran. And it's
Yeah, but in retrospect, that was driven solely by the cryptocurrency, marijuana, and lithium
I,
bubbles.
I tried to avoid those three buzzwords, but now I have to
Yeah,
tag him in our interview and get some clickbait.
yeah.
No,
That's what drove the index up so rapidly in the first half of January, and it hit 940, closed at 940 on January 9th, and then those bubbles within a week or two started to really collapse, and we saw volumes collapse on the venture exchange by any. I mean, we're trading right now at somewhere about one third to one half of the volumes we were seeing in January.
that's true. It's dried up a little bit here in recent days. Although yesterday, just looking at it on Friday, I'm assuming it is because of the geopolitical tension in the markets. We've seen them as a decent increase actually, closing at 795. It looks like the market is starting a bit of a rebound. Also looking at the GDX, the bigger miners, they seem to be on a positive trend here
Yeah,
in general.
your points were very well taken there. It's very much driven by gold. Over the last week, 4 days up in a row for the venture exchange. We haven't seen that in quite some time, and the major and mid-tier gold stocks also did well last week.
No, fantastic. Okay. One thing I want to mention at the sort of at the end here of our quick market wrap here on this Sunday is that it's more in our Oreninc own interest is that we've uploaded all the PDAC CEO elevator pitches that we've done. It's been over 43. All the interviews we've done with, for example, with Mickey Fulp, Brent Cook, Joe Mazumdar, and others are available on our YouTube channel. So please go visit youtube.com and just look for Oreninc, and you'll find an affluence of information there about the junior mining market and some very, very interesting comments about companies, the markets, PDAC itself, and what's happening. Mickey, I really appreciate you taking the time this
Hey,
morning.
Kai, we can't forget our number though. I
Oh,
got a doozy this week.
oh, that's good. No, then let's definitely do that. And while you mention yours, I'll come up with a sad one, I think.
Okay, okay. So my number today, and since we've talked so much about how markets are in the red, I'll give you another big red number, and that's minus 200. And that's the number of drill rigs in Canada's oil patch that have shut down in the last 6 weeks. Canada now has lost two-thirds of its drill rigs over the last 6 weeks, and only 100 remaining. Meanwhile, in the U.S., drill rigs went above 1,000 for the first time in 3 years and closed at a 3-year high of 1,010 rigs turning to the right, mainly in the shale oil patches of the U.S.
Wow, I didn't know that Canada was suffering that badly. But
Yes,
I've
sir.
noticed that actually on our financing side that the oil and gas, although it's like we try to exclude it to a degree because they're usually too big, but we haven't seen a lot of financing activity in that space at all. Also, in terms of where the money is flowing, Alberta has like dramatically dropped off there in recent months or years
Yes, sir.
actually. So that's
Yep.
quite interesting. I have to admit, I forgot to come up with a number. So the sad number, and I always like to do something sports related or something a little different, is that my team, Borussia Dortmund, just lost against Schalke in their derby 2-0, and that makes me very sad. So that's my. It's not the number of the week, but it's a sad number. it kind of fits the overall tune and the subduedness of the market. So it fits my mood today with a plugged up nose and just
Okay.
the allergy attack. I was
And
just
your
like,
allergy attacks.
it works really well. So
Okay.
it fits the
Okay,
theme
Kai.
to a degree. Mickey, I really, really appreciate you taking the time on this Sunday morning. Enjoy the rest of your coffee. Have a wonderful day. It's actually a beautiful day out here in Frankfurt. I'm probably going to sit outside on the porch for a little bit and enjoy the rest of the last couple hours here today.
Thanks a lot, Kai.
Take care. Thank you.